Welcome to the Creative Brew, helping you keep your creative juices brewing. We're giving out chunks of insight, motivation, and practicality for your creative journey. My next partner is Elevate Coffee Trading, and if you appreciate specialty coffee, enjoy outdoor adventure, and love helping elevate the lives of children around the world, then you're going to love Elevate Coffee Trading. Their mission is to extract hope through love, coffee, and adventures. There's free shipping in the United States, and every bag of coffee helps sponsor health and education for children in coffee-producing countries and in areas of need in the United States. You can use promo code ELEVATE21 on your next order, and you can follow their journey on social media at Elevate Coffee Trading. Or you can visit online at elevatecoffeetrading.com, and let's start extracting hope together. And this episode is brought to you by Boba Coffee, smuggling good vibes. Boba roasts their coffee beans each week and only offers the freshest coffee. They have espressos, lattes, cappuccinos, pour over, or drip coffee. You can try their cold brew coffee, nitro cold brew, or bulletproof coffee, and boba milk teas. They also have a wide assortment of delicious food. I would suggest you try the avocado toast, mimosas, wine, or beer. On the weekends, you can check out some great music like the Soto Six and food like Eliza the Shelf and others over the weekend, every Friday and Saturday, beginning at 6 p.m. You can check out everything they got going on Facebook and Instagram at Baba Coffee. And welcome back to a new episode of the Creative Brew, giving you insights on your creative journey. Today, we have Eric Scrivner, a new and upcoming author, just put out a new book called Winter's Haven. So this is and like I said, I've got the been very fortunate to be able to see sort of like almost the behind the scenes. So I've seen some of the artwork, and like I said, really looks good. So I'm really interested in seeing, hearing about the whole overall story. But I'll let Eric sort of talk about his story, how he got started, and his future plans for Winter's Haven.
When I was younger, was really into comics, role-playing games, loved drawing. Ever since I was a little kid, I would pester my mom and my dad to draw me dinosaurs, out of the book. And my mom would just tell me, I can't draw, son. My dad actually could draw a little bit, but he mostly would say no. So I kind of got into drawing, tracing, and all that, and I just really loved that. And I did that and writing really intensely for all the way up through high school and into college. Then when I got to college, I saw a lot of the other talent that was there, and I thought, man, that you're probably going to end up being a graphic designer, making menus, because it's going to be hard to just do what you want, and make a living doing that. So maybe that was right, maybe that was wrong. I don't know. But long story short, I also liked science. I liked magnetics in particular, maybe because of Magneto from the X-Men. I don't know. But I always did think he was a really cool character, but loved electromagnetics, loved magnetics in general. And so ended up going into science. That's what I do for a living now, but I've always kept into storytelling and drawing and all of that through role-playing games with friends and just drawing on my own, reading on my own. And so have tried in the past to write books and carry that all the way across the line, but haven't managed it until now. So yeah, that kind of it's kind of where I am right now.
Yeah. So do you feel like even with your new book, because I know I always get these questions from just different creators that maybe they're trying to get something out, trying to get a book out or whatever. Do you feel like what was like that point to where like, hey, I've got to get this I've got to get this book out? I didn't know what that sort of like that crux point was when you just made that decision, like, okay, I'm just going to get this done.
That's good question. I don't know if it's that I'm getting older. I just had my 50th birthday.
Oh,
and
congratulations.
yeah, I made it half a century. Um, uh, I don't know if it was that. I don't. I don't know if it just was inspiration, right? It was just I had tried to write a book back in the past with one of my other friends who's a fantastic artist. He actually passed away sadly, but I actually dedicated this book to him. But um, I had tried to do that in the past, and I don't think I had the right idea at the time. But when I was coming up with this idea, I thought this is one that I could go with, you know. So maybe it was part like just time, right? It was time to do it. It was time to do it or don't do it. A Yoda moment, right? Do or do not. There is no try, right? And so it was time to do it. And then I also feel like I had a good idea for the story. And so I think those two things together are what kind of pushed me over the line to get it done.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about Winter's Haven. Just the, premise around it and
Yeah.
inspiration and everything else.
Yeah. So don't know exactly which things to include in what the inspiration is. I love world building and I love reading books where there is world building. And I don't necessarily Winter's Haven or the realm is called Erland. It's not necessarily super exotic or anything like that. It's all the details. And that's what always gets me when I'm reading stories is, it doesn't have to be where like, everybody walks upside down or something. It doesn't have to be like a big difference. It has to be all the little details. I think obviously Tolkien's a good example of that. I mean, it's very sort of derivative of past works like Beowulf and just drawing on regular mythology. But it's all the details that he puts into it that I love. But one of I guess some of the things that I wanted to accomplish, there's an author that I like. His name is Garth Nix. I don't know that he's super well known, but he wrote a series called The Abortion, and that always stuck with me because it really followed one character and it was very sort of straightforward. So um, um, one of the things that I wanted to do with this book is I wanted it to be fun, reasonably straightforward, but have complexity built into the details. And also, it, I wanted it to be positive. You take like a lot of the stuff that you see with like Game of Thrones or whatever, and it's very brutal,
Yeah.
very brutal. And so this book is more about a young man's journey and he's actually runs across, there's some bad folks in the book, but there's a lot of people that help him. And so I wanted it to be more sort of um uplifting in that regard, right? And so yeah, those are some of the things that kind of went into it. And everything in the book, that's why it's called the Transformation Chronicles. Everything that's happening in the story, the young man is changing, the world is changing, the gods are changing, everything is kind of transforming from what it is into what it's going to be. And so you're going along the journey and with the boy and in the realm, or with the young man and in the realm, and watching all these transformations happen. So um, yeah, so uh, I could say tons of other things, but that's probably a good place to stop.
Yeah. So with the book, even specifically, even with the characters, do you find yourself sort of being inspired by people like in real life, like when you create these characters?
Um, yes. So one of the things that really was a concern for me whenever I started writing this was being able to do the dialogue. But the more and that's one of the things that maybe happened for me too, in terms of like being able to write the book now. I feel like as an older person now, I have had more time to sort of watch people and understand how people will come at things from different perspectives and be able to really put myself in those perspectives and think like, how would this person respond? So, I don't know that they're necessarily like specific people, but they're sort of amalgamations of types of people that I've run across. And so that helps me to like make sure that I worried that characters would be one dimensional and that you wouldn't be able to just read a sentence and be able to say, oh, that's Abby, or oh, that's Halleck, or whatever, right? But um, but if I give myself a chance when I'm writing that character to get my head in their space, then that helps me to do that. So it's not specific people necessarily, but like I said, like types of people that I've run across, or people who are in different positions or perspectives.
Yeah. So going back, circling back around, I mean, I know just with other writers or just creators, sometimes they have that, they have their ways of like possibly, ways of getting through that resistance or getting through that writer's block. Like what's been like the easiest way for you? Like I didn't know if you wrote this book in chunks. It's sort of like, okay, let me take a break from it, come back to it, or you had your, schedule and routine. Maybe coming from a scientist, I didn't know if you had a specific process as far as creating this book.
Yes. What I find the biggest thing for me to overcome is just generic procrastination. And so the main thing that I recommend to other people, and that I try to hold myself to, in fact, just last night I failed. But what I try to do is I try to make sure that each night I just set the goal right for 15 minutes. If I can get the computer open and I can start writing, if I just give myself really achievable goals, really small goals, most of the time I write way longer than that. So, but if I think, oh man, I gotta write 2,000 words tonight, well, I'm probably not gonna. That's gonna be enough of an impedance for me that I'm not gonna get there. So my trick to keep things going is to give myself, my mind, like a small goal. Just right for 15 minutes, kind of like exercise, right? Just go for a walk, and it's like, well, once I'm out, it's like, maybe I'll jog instead, right? Or, so I'll just do 10 push-ups. Well, maybe you do 20, and so I try to just give myself things that I could get my head around. So, because it can be intimidating to think like I have to write, and like, what if I sit there and just stare at the screen? It's like, well, no, just get it open and just write down some thoughts. And sometimes you're feeling it and you can do a lot. And sometimes you're like, you know what? No, 15 minutes is just fine. And you just, but you did it, right? And so you can kind of feel good, and it keeps the momentum going. So, um, in terms of, so that's that. And so in terms of process, I really stumbled through this first one. And, but for the second one that I'm working on now, what I found is that there are a lot of developmental editors and beta readers and things like that available out there. And I mercifully did learn about the beta readers early enough on that was super helpful. And so in this time around, I'm going to actually take advantage of some of the folks that I worked with already and work with them on the outline to make sure that like I'm not missing major plot points. Or like in my first book, that one of the guys was like, "Hey, you're missing a call to action." And I was like, "Oh, well, that's probably not good." Right. So then that's like rearranging chapters and just a lot of work. And so this time around, I would my biggest recommendation for people is get on Fiverr or get on Reddit or get in these author groups and offer to help other people if you don't have the money to pay for somebody on Fiverr, and trade that. Or if you can spare $50 and work with somebody on Fiverr, I think that's absolutely invaluable, because a lot of the folks out there are editors. They've been doing this for a long time. They've seen a lot of mistakes. So lean into their experience.
I
So
like that. That's a good, really, really good idea. Yeah, that's I know we talked about that. I never really even considered like using beta readers or anything like that for for the book. Um, yeah, I'm actually surprised you didn't use the outline for for this first.
well, there was an outline, but what happened was when so what happened was there were a lot of problems with it. And so when I wrote and I started thinking through what I wrote, I started catching like a lot of problems that when you're in outline form, it's not necessarily fleshed out enough for you to realize that, oh my gosh, like that person can't do that right there because they already did this thing over here. And then so so there was an outline. It was just that I was very inexperienced and very amateur, and just thought it was more fleshed out than it really was, and that yielded a lot of downstream work that I think you can lean into other people to help you see things that your fantasy writers. I had this much respect for fantasy writers. It's, I mean, to build a world, to create characters, and to have those characters to be able to do things that you can't do in real life, but then also be sure that everybody is acting self-consistently within that. It's very, very difficult. So, kudos to the people that are doing that out there. It's you're you're biting off a very big problem when you're doing that. You have to build your own world. You have to set your own rules, build your own characters, and then convey all that to the reader in an interesting way and self-consistently. So, like I said, you know, everybody's everybody's seen the Star Wars movie or the other movie where they're like, that doesn't make sense because that person did that over there. How come he doesn't just do that now? And it's like, yeah, because you gotta be careful with that. Like if your character can see in the dark, like one of my characters can see in the dark. Sometimes I forget, and he'll wait in a room for the sun to come up, and then I'll look back and I'm like, he doesn't need to do that, So it's hard. Yeah, it's hard. So
Yeah, I know. Even with even with Star Wars or even with some of the other properties, you get people, and it's cool too because you get people, and even with Winter's Haven, I'm sure like you get people emotionally invested into these characters and this world. Like they get super serious. Like, hey, look, this character can only do this. Like, why,
right.
why are they in this situation? I was like, they can.
one of the characters one of the characters in the story, I had to way scale back her powers because I realized, like, oh, she's a god. Like, if she can do that, she'll break the whole book. So I had to put some restrictions on some of her powers,
Mm.
because of that. And so just working through all that, uh sometimes you just want to sit in a corner and cry because you think like, oh, I've done all this work, and it's just not good. You've had to make so many changes and whatever, and you're like, has it really held together, as you've gone through that process? And then sometimes you feel great, right? Sometimes you're like, this is the best, and I'm so happy with this, and it's working and everything. So a lot of highs and lows, you
Oh
know.
yeah, yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But hey, I know it's better to and something that I heard from one of my good friends is just have the kernel of the idea. Like if you can just put out like just a kernel of the idea that you have out and just put it out, you can always go back and like, okay, let's get some things fixed. So for first of all, I applaud you for getting this book out because it's hard, getting through that resistance of like, hey, is it ready? Or just
Oh,
you, like I said, you went, really courageous to put it out. You can always go back and revise certain things, but yeah, that's better than someone being on the fence and procrastinating a little bit and like, okay, well, I'll do this whenever I get all this stuff set in place. Or so yeah, you always wanted to be perfect. You always wanted to come out and be
yeah.
perfect, but it's just I would rather
And
be out and published than sitting on the fence.
yeah, I used to have a mentor when I was younger. He who would say, "He who does nothing makes no mistakes." So
Yeah.
so you got to be okay with making mistakes. One thing also with this world is that I want to write more books in this world, and so I really wanted to set in the first book like a real backdrop and a real solid place to write more books. And so, yeah, so I'm in this for sort of the long haul. I'm hoping to have other books in this same world. And I was also kind of thinking like, as I get older, this is something that I can keep doing once I'm retired or whatever, to keep my mind engaged and interested, and so that was one of the aims here too.
Oh, awesome, awesome. So right now, what are some? I mean, obviously, being a self-published author, like, what's been some of the challenges for you, like getting the book out, or perhaps marketing or promotions? What's been, and really how have you been resourceful enough to to make it work?
So again, in the same with the beta readers and the proofreaders and the editors and all of that, getting help there was very important. For a very reasonable amount of money, you can get help with the formatting and with getting it on Amazon KDP or however you want to just go about publishing it, because everybody's busy, right? They're doing a lot of things. You have kids and other jobs and stuff like that. And so, but the biggest challenge is, besides, you've got to write the book. That's obviously a challenge. Then, getting it edited. And then finally, just like you said, getting to the point where you're just like, okay, it's probably not perfect, but it's good enough. And we just get it out there. Getting help with the formatting and that kind of stuff that's not too bad. The marketing is the next phase. That's a real challenge. You try to use social media, and there's a lot of people who are going to be reaching out to you to help you with marketing. And when you're on Facebook or Instagram, you can't often tell what you're really dealing with there. So definitely for authors, especially indie authors, especially new indie authors, like definitely beware of potentially shark infested waters. So yeah, just the marketing. So what I've decided to take so far as the approach there is just look at it as a marathon, not a sprint, and just take my time, realize that it might take a long time for it to get traction or to sell the number of copies that I want. But just keep reaching out organically, like with you and other folks, and then also offering that in return, sharing other stuff that you like from other people, networking with indie authors also. I think that's the way to go. But I would say the marketing part is all right all day long over figuring out the marketing challenges. I think that's much more difficult. They're hard to compare. They're different kinds of difficult, but for me, the marketing one is more challenging.
Yeah. Now, do you have a cover? Do you have the book on you right now? And this
Yeah.
is going to be for people that sees the video portion of this episode, or at least a snippet of it. You'll have a chance to sort of see the book cover, see this. Obviously, if you're listening to this on podcast form, you're not going to be able to see this, but on video form, you'll be able to see this cover.
Yeah, you want me to show it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see what it. Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, there it goes. Oh,
I have to put it in front of my face because I got the blur effect on.
Yeah, you might have to bring it. It's because it still looks a little fuzzy there. It's getting there. Oh, there. Okay. There was one point of it where it was sort of push it over a little bit.
Hold on one second.
Yeah, for whatever reason it was I guess with the background being blurry, it'll focus in on.
I'll just uncheck the blurred background.
Perfect. There it goes.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah. So for people that's watching this, you're seeing Winter's Haven here. And is there, and I would assume there's a specific meaning to those symbols.
Yeah. Yeah. So in that particular case, Winter's Haven is a city in, so I loved this Forgotten Realms series whenever I was a kid, that they had. Forgotten Realms is like a D&D world that the game exists in, and there's a whole series of books. And one of the original ones, they basically told the story by having a sequence of books that were city names in Forgotten Realms. So like Waterdeep was one, and Shadowdale and Tantris and whatever. So they had these books. So I kind of did the same thing. So Winter's Haven, I'm envisioning 3 books that are 3 main cities, and Winter's Haven's one of them. And this symbol is there are 3 families that founded Winter's Haven, and the box is one family's sigil. the three circles is another family sigil, and then that straight line is another family sigil. And
Hmm.
so they, on the gates to Winter's Haven, there is that symbol on that. And so that's the so I like I like I iconography. I like iconographic things. So all
Yeah.
the gods have like symbols. So and I did that artwork, and again worked with a graphic designer to help with the cover to like spruce it up, make it look like it's in uh charcoal on parchment, so
Mhm.
effect. So yeah, yeah.
So right now, I mean, what for you, what's been your inspiration? I know, and I know we've had some conversations, and it seems like you like going outdoors and doing hiking and stuff. Like, for you, do you? I know personally for me, like I always like I love exercising. I love getting out in nature.
Yeah.
That's generally where I tend to find more my best ideals. Just getting out in nature. I didn't know for you, like what's the inspiration for you?
So yeah, so I think being outdoors, um, different kinds of natural environments or whatever can be inspiring. One thing I like to do is I love mythology. I love lore. So I listen to a lot of podcasts about mythology. I listen to a lot of podcasts about different lore, whether it's in, some Star Wars, or if it's in Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder or some other tabletop role playing game or whatever. But what I do is when I'm listening to that, I pick up elements that I like from those different things and kind of try to figure out how they can mesh in with what I'm doing within the story that I'm trying to tell as well. So I find that to be very inspiring. Nothing like, just a funny example. Did you see the series, the Ahsoka series on
Yeah,
Disney?
yeah, that was awesome.
Man, that moment where they take those space whales to that planet and there's that asteroid belt of whale bones, because that's where the whales go to die. That is just one of those goosebump moments where you're just like, that is such a great idea, It's such an evocative thing, and you see that and you're like, yes, more of that, And so that's what that's one of the things. I like the characters, love stories, tragedy, all of that. That's good too. But just like seeing somebody's like creative inspiration like that, that's just an example. So those kind of things, like when I'm listening to different podcasts, about different things, you'll hear those things and you're like, that's really fun or exciting or evocative or whatever. And so that's where I get a lot of my inspiration from, is just seeing what other people's creative minds can come up with. When I was a kid, it was comics. You open the comic and you'd see, like, you get to the splash page on the comic, and just really impressed with the idea or the concept or whatever. So yeah, that's where I get, I think, most of my inspiration from.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So right now, I mean, what are some creative tips, or maybe one tip or a couple of tips that you can provide for our audience?
Creative tips. Well, for me, like I said, just practically give yourself overcomable obstacles, especially if you find that, that you're struggling to get started. Um, um, be okay failing. I did the artwork for my book here, and there were nights when it just wasn't going to happen. Don't get um, discouraged by that. If there's something you can't do or you can't accomplish that you'd like to accomplish, reach out to other people for help. I think, don't be afraid. It still counts as your creation, even if somebody helps you with the formatting or the editing or something like that. So I think that is a tip. Boy, a tip for how to, but a tip for how to have the, you just kind of are feeling it or you're not. You know what I mean? So I'm not sure. I don't know if there's really anything I do to kind of, I guess, listening to, watching other people, listening to their creative works, that kind of gets me going. I guess that would be a creative tip. Find that thing that gets you excited about what you want to do. if it's being out in nature, or it's listening to podcasts, or it's looking at paintings on the internet or whatever, find that thing that kind of gets gets you excited and makes you want to participate with those people doing that kind of stuff. That's what I would say.
Yeah, great tips. Great tips. Well, I mean, before we get ready to sign off here, I mean, what are some words of wisdom? Just some ending words of wisdom, just something that you can give to our audience that would resonate with them when they find your book and they find this podcast and they listen to you. What's some things that you can give to our audience?
Yeah. If you're So first of all, if you're people out there who are readers and you like to read, the thing I would say is that I think there's a lot of independent authors out there that are doing a lot of really great stuff. So give them a shot. That's one thing I would say. And also great, just want to express gratitude to you for having me on, and to all the people that are listening. When you're starting out, you're coming a lot of times with your hat out, so definitely want to express gratitude, that's for sure. And then, like I said, for the people who are wanting to do, or to do some creative works themselves, try to find a community of people. I think you're going to find inspiration from people that you're hanging out with that are doing the same thing. And then if you're creative and you've already built that community around yourself, then when you release your work, you've got a network of people that you can work with to help get that out there. So even if you haven't done anything yet, I think if you have plans to, if you're only 30, that's going to sound funny to people, but if you're only 30, start building your network. If that's something that you have in your mind that you want to do, that's something that I made a mistake, is I kind of got off of social media, and I kind of just said, I got kids, I'm busy, I don't, I'm just out of that. I think that was a mistake. I think when, start building that community even well before you're done with what you're doing, or even if it's just something that you're thinking like, man, one day I'd like to write a book, or release a book of art or something like that, or a portfolio. Yeah, start building that community. Surround yourself with other creatives. They'll motivate you too, whether you know they will or not. I think they will. You're going to see people pumping out stuff that they really have passion for, and it'll inspire you.
Great. That's great. Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I recently just did spoke at a art conference last week, and created this little 5-part system as far as getting how to create what you love, or how to put out that viable product. And one of those important parts was like resources, like even having a network, or having the people capable of doing things that you may not be able to do.
Yes.
That was a very important part as far as that 5-part process. So I'm glad that helps with that feedback. That helps sort of
Yeah.
confirm that I was on the right track with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotta have that network. You can have the greatest book in the world, but I mean, if no one knows about it, I mean, it's sometimes it could be a mute point. But you do have to be your number one fan first. So at least get the book out. You've already done that. Now it just goes to, just
Somebody that I follow on Instagram, she said, and I've seen this said other places before, and I don't think it really resonated with me as much as it does now in the past. Man, write what you love. You know, don't get caught up in trying to make sure that there's a market for what you're trying to do. I think the passion will carry through much more than trying to sort of analytically, we're talking about science, right? Like trying to analytically go out and focus group to figure out what no, man, do your thing, it'll come through. So yeah, that's I had heard that recommendation, or that advice or whatever, and I think that's spot on too.
yeah. So right now, how can people reach out to you, or purchase the book, what's the best way of getting in contact with you?
Yeah, so the books on Amazon, my email address is in the book. So there's an author page. I'm working on a web page now. So yeah, if you just go on Amazon and type in Winter's Haven, uh, and it'll pop up. 2 words, Winters is plural. It'll pop up for you. And Yeah, that's the easiest way to get a hold of me. If you wanted to, I'm on Instagram. I'm figuring that out, as you know. I did my first Instagram post 2 days ago. They were very proud of me. I was less proud, but in any event. Um, I don't know if you remember, but first time you do your Instagram post, they celebrate it like you've done something amazing. Anyway, but yeah, I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook too. That's the two socials I'm on. That's under ES Scrivner in both cases. So you can reach out to me there too. So
Awesome. Awesome. Well, this has been a very cool episode. So when you get a chance, please check out Winter's Haven. It's on Amazon. You can't miss it. Like I said, this is, I wouldn't say this is be the next Game of Thrones. Do you envision this being like on TV or something, or like what would be like your biggest dream for this book?
um man, if I sold 1,000 copies of this book, I'd be over the moon. I'm at about 100 now. Um, so it's been out about a month. And I'd like to sell 1,000, but if it really took off and it hit 10,000, then I could almost imagine, um, maybe considering that as like a more viable path, for doing more like part-time or whatever, as a writer proper. But yeah, and in terms of making it into a movie, man, I'm a super visual writer. Like all the writing in my book is a scene in my head first. So yeah, man, somebody wants to make it into like an animated movie or whatever, sure, that'd be great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be
that'd
cool.
be awesome. Yeah. If my main character can get where I want him to get, if I have the craft skill to actually convey that in the final book, you know, that could be a cool poster. That could be a Darth Vader, you know what I mean?
Oh, nice, nice,
Yeah,
nice.
it's got
I'm gonna have to create a Winter's Haven design for you. I'm gonna have to create something now. I'm getting the inspiration here now.
yeah. I've got in my head the main character's name is Ilfair, and in my mind, like because again, it's Transformation Chronicles. He's going to be changing over time, and in my mind, there's this final state that he has, and you know, in my mind, he's very very he's very cool. He's kind of the character that you'd want if you were a young or a middle school or early high school boy. You might want that on a poster over your bed or something like that. But like, yeah, it'd be a good movie poster. You'd be like, man, that dude's awesome, man. So like, yeah, that's what I'm trying to accomplish.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hey, this has been another awesome episode. Please get his book, Winter's Haven. He's looking for 10,000 10,000 books sold. So you know what? If you get a chance to check this out, hey, please support. I'll put his link in the show notes whenever this releases, and you'll be able to get in contact with him through Instagram, purchase his book, um, send him feedback, let him know what you think of the book. So this is, like I said, I always want this show to, specifically to be a platform for, indie publishers, indie creators, that's trying to get their work out and trying to get it out to their audiences. This is the show for it. So once again, Winter's Haven, please check it out on Amazon. And once again, hey, this has been another awesome episode with me, with Eric Scrivner. And also, too, different ways of supporting the podcast and the show. You can support it at www.buymeacoffee.com/the creative brew. And for the price of a cup of coffee, you can support this episode as well as future episodes for businesses, coffee shops that's looking to sponsor and help promote your business and brand on the show. We have options for that too as well. So just throwing that out there, different ways of support the show and keeping it going. So once again, This is another awesome episode. Be creative, stay inspired. Call the homie up, told them loot to sample up. We gotta come together now, cause I had enough. The time is now, there'll never be another one. It's a SOUNDCLOUD.